Thanks for being here. The Texas Blockchain Council, many of you may know, but if you don't, we're an industry association working to make Texas the jurisdiction of choice for blockchain, Bitcoin, and crypto. And we do that through advocacy work, passing legislation, writing legislation, and through business development. We have 100 corporate members who participate in a lot of our events or conferences, and they use us to help them find their next client, their next employee, or their next investor. So if you are interested in joining the TBC, you can talk to me afterwards. I'm going to hand it over to Sanjay, and he's going to introduce the panelists.
You want to do it?
Oh, no, we said Evan would.
Okay,
So, sorry, Evan.
No, I thought you were throwing us a curveball. It's fine.
No.
I've been practicing names, guys. This is a fun one, but I have to have a cheat sheet. So as mentioned, Sanjay is on our foundation board. He's going to be the moderator of our panel. Susan Swan Smith is the director of the My Possibilities Foundation. That's my boss. And then Bratcher is here from Texas Blockchain Council, and Yusuf Nessary is here from Bitcoin for Good, or Built with Bitcoin Foundation. My bad. See, that's why I have notes and I still mess it up. So why don't you guys come on up, and they're gonna have a conversation, and it's gonna be very enlightening. And we have one microphone. Don't ask me why. I'm a little mad at it.
That's all right. All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out tonight. Thanks also for My Possibilities for hosting this event at this beautiful venue, facility, etc. So a little bit about myself. My name is Sanjay Kalluvilayil. I'm actually on the foundation board for My Possibilities. I'm the secretary also. I joined about 2 years ago, and someone asked me, what's your connection to this space? Actually, I don't have a connection. I just wanted to help out, right? And do something great for the community. And then I'm also the COO for the Texas Blockchain Council. So I said, I'm part of these two great organizations. What can I do to connect these in the intersection of philanthropy and blockchain, Bitcoin, crypto? So that's the nexus of this event. So I'm going to also ask you guys to introduce yourselves. So Susan, tell me a little bit about My Possibilities, your role, and yourself.
Well, thank you. I have been here close to 1.5 years. I've been in fundraising and development for more years than I care to admit. It has been great to be here at My Possibilities, to be closer to, I've worked for big organizations, and My Possibilities is a substantial nonprofit, but we're really close. Evan, my colleagues and me, we're really close to the delivery of services, and that's just been a joy to be here. I will say My Possibilities is a joyous place. I know some of you got a chance to get a tour. When I'm down or unfocused, I come down here and walk through the program, because our hipsters, hugely important people, are among the most joyous people in the world. Do you want me to go ahead and talk a little bit about My Possibilities?
Yes.
Or come back? Okay.
And also maybe the award that you
Oh, okay. So our mission, and I have it memorized, but when I have to say it in front of people, I get nervous, so I need notes like Evan. Our mission is to courageously and relentlessly pursue the full, untapped possibilities of our hugely important people, making every day count. We've been around for about 14 years. We were a product of 3 mothers whose sons were aging out of the Plano school system, having coffee at Starbucks, saying, what comes next? And they decided what was important was education, work, and residence, housing, undergirded by transportation. And through sheer force of will, less than 1 year later, My Possibilities had opened with our first 10 hipsters. We've grown now to we served 600 hipsters before the pandemic. We're up to 450 now, and our enrollment will be up before too long. Inclusivity is very important to us. We want our hipsters to know the community, and we want the community to know our hipsters. So we work not only on educating them, and we allow them, we call it a collegiate model. We allow each hipster to choose their classes for each of 4 semesters. They can be educational, they can be independent living skills, or they can be focused on work and how to work. That was where we started. We've moved beyond that now. We have a whole career services department that actually helps our hipsters and other people with intellectual or developmental disabilities in the community find jobs. You will not find a more loyal workforce than hipsters. We are actually building a second building over here just to focus on career services. It's that important to us. Most of our hipsters either have Down syndrome or are on the autism spectrum or have traumatic brain injury. But among our 450 hipsters, we've got 160 different diagnoses. So our instructors are very important to us. So we're blowing and going. There's always something going on here. We spun up an online curriculum when COVID shut us down. So we've got that going. We offer coaching. I mentioned the career services building that we're building. And we're also in the process of developing a neighborhood out in Garland, which will have 300 homes, 100 of which will be designated for people with IDD. And the other 200 will just be neighbors, family, friends, and people who wanted a nice, reasonably affordable home out there. So it's a neat place to be. We're so glad you're all here tonight.
Tell us about the award.
Oh, the award, thank you. You know, we all like to pretend that we're modest and awards don't really matter, but they kind of do. And we were very honored to be selected by DCEO magazine as the large nonprofit of the year. And that has been great. It's a nice honor, but it also raises our visibility in the community. And we were up against some big dogs. We were up against Parkland, Big Thought, Texas Trees Foundation. So we were surprised and really honored to win that award a couple weeks ago.
Yes, thank you. And I think what resonated with me, part of the organization, is how do these young adults transition into the workplace? How do they be independent? And also, as a parents age and they pass away, right? What happens to those adults and how do they live independently? And so part of this is finding solutions for that, right? And the funding around that. So great.
Yeah.
And Yusuf, tell us a little bit more about Bitcoin, Built with Bitcoin Foundation.
Thank you all. Thank you for having me. Truly honored to be in this venue here at Mind Possibilities. I really enjoyed the tour and learning more about the work. And thank you, Lee, for inviting me as well, too. My name is Yusuf Nessary. I'm the co-founder and director of Philanthropy for the Built with Bitcoin Foundation. I started my first nonprofit about 10 years ago. But in 2017, someone wanted to make a very significant contribution to our organization. And the financial platform that we were using at the time flagged it as potential fraud because of where it came from. And so what led to was an email correspondence. I had to reach out to him and say, thank you so much for your contribution, but is there another form of payment that you can make? You can imagine fundraising, how difficult it is to get the contribution initially, and then to have to go back and ask that potential donor, is there another form of payment that you can make? It was a very significant contribution, and so that's why it was flagged and where it was from. And so that individual responded back to me with one line and said, do you accept Bitcoin? And I said, what the heck is Bitcoin? So as anyone else would in that time, this was 2017, mind you, I went onto Google, I typed in literally, what is Bitcoin ? And all these things came up and it was negative, negative, positive, negative, negative, negative. And I was like, do I really want to get involved in this space, in this dark internet money, so to speak? But what led me to make a decision that changed my life forever was I was asking questions back and forth to this individual via email. And the person on the other side that was answering all of my emails and my questions was Ray Yusuf, who happens to be the co-founder of the Built with Bitcoin Foundation. And he happens to also be the CEO and founder of Paxful, which is a peer-to-peer global marketplace. The reason why I bring this up is I had this peer-to-peer kind of conversation and relationship that I built with him. And that trust that we kind of were able to gain from one another allowed me to learn more about Bitcoin and why I can use it on a daily basis to disrupt this traditional archaic industry that is philanthropy. How can I make philanthropy better? That's why I started my own nonprofit, because I didn't believe in charity work. I didn't think that it was, the money was going to the right place. There's corruption. Do projects even get completed, right? To be able to see, not to trust but verify. Similar to how we are here today. Since that time in 2017, we've built schools in Rwanda, Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, El Salvador. We're doing work in Indonesia and Southeast Asia. And our mission and goal is to be able to build 100 schools in 100 different countries by 2030, completely using Bitcoin. And we've done 10 schools in 10 different countries thus far. Our work has been able to affect in a positive way. Bitcoin has been able to affect in a positive way 120,000 lives in a sustainable manner since 2017. That's what we're super excited about. So for us in our foundation, we are all about quality over quantity, and I'm very excited to talk to you more about it this evening. Thank you.
So I already introduced myself. I'm not going to talk about the TBC anymore. I want to talk about that point that Yusuf just made. There are globally countries across the world where adoption of Bitcoin and crypto in general is massively higher than in the United States. We have a moderately well-functioning financial services system in the US, although it's a little archaic on the back end. Don't ask about like SWIFT and ACH and all that stuff. Bitcoin makes it better. Bitcoin fixes that, actually, is the phrase. But if you look at like Nigeria or Vietnam or Senegal or DRC or some of these developing countries or El Salvador, the adoption rates are through the roof for a lot of reasons. Banking infrastructure is really bad. The percentage of people with bank accounts is extremely low. Inflation is very high. All these things that we take for granted here in the West, or in the United States in general, do not exist. So I know Nigeria and Vietnam are the top two, well, in Singapore for different reasons, right? Singapore is just very tech forward. They're the top two per capita adoption of Bitcoin. Do you remember the percentage off the top of your head? I could make a stab at it, but I wondered if you knew.
So Vietnam and Indonesia in the earlier of this year was at 41%. So Nigeria is it's what a playground Nigeria is. So Nigeria has not only the highest level of adoption in Africa, but it has also the highest volume adoption as well too. So we're not just talking about number of transactions, we're talking about the amount in the transactions themselves. There is no place on the planet, I have visited 34 countries and I work in 20 of them. Like there's no place on the planet that I've seen that has more financial discrimination for its people than in Nigeria. And Bitcoin was literally, I think Satoshi Nakamoto, whoever he, they, she, whoever they are, was an African. Because as a continent, Africa can utilize Bitcoin in its most positive way possible. And to your point, Lee, there are places around the world that we work in where it takes 3 hours for an individual one way to be able to go access a banking institution. We're talking about people that don't have access to water, let alone a car to be able to drive to, right? But Bitcoin literally fixes this issue with smartphones, and now there's new technology where a simple phone, using USSD can allow folks to be able to purchase and to be able to sell Bitcoin. So it's all about accessibility. It's all about education and then accessibility. And that's why I truly feel in our line of work, Bitcoin is not only the future, it is the present.
Well, Lee, I'm going to ask you a question, but before I do, I just let folks know, before I was in my role at Texas Blockchain Council, actually I was trying to get into the blockchain space, so I Googled one day blockchain, I found Texas Blockchain Council. I said, so last spring I was just a random member, just showing up to events and networking, etc. And now I'm in this role. So, but I know you did an introduction, Lee, in terms of the industry associations, the C6, etc. But maybe you can tell the folks here and watching, some of the legislation that's been passed, how we're working to make Texas a leader in this space, and then what we're working on going in 2020, 2022, 23.
Yeah, so if you are following this in the news, you can see that the crypto industry is beset by a lack of regulatory clarity. A lot of that comes from the SEC and the CFTC at the federal level. What you may not know is that a lot of the regulatory climate is set at the state level as well. We have a Texas State Securities Board, a Texas Department of Banking that oversees money transmission licenses. All of these are regulatory environments that exchanges like Coinbase and Kraken have to navigate. And so last session in Texas, the 87th legislature, we helped to research and write 2 pieces of legislation. It's super boring. I'll just try to synthesize them into one quick, or actually it's 3 quick points. One is it defines virtual currency for the purpose of business law. 2 is it defines how you perfect your security interests in that virtual currency, or excuse me, how you control it through possession of the cryptographic key. So if you're in the space that the phrase, not your keys, not your coins. And then the third point is the perfecting of the security interest. So you can actually have a collateral arrangement where Bitcoin is collateral, or some other digital asset is collateral for a loan, to buy a house, to build a business, to do whatever. And that institution that's providing the loan takes the Bitcoin as collateral, They use a 2 of 3 multi-sig situation where they have one key, a third party has another, and the originator of the loan, the owner of the asset, has the third. And if that asset owner defaults, the third party gives the cryptographic key to the lender, who's then instantly able to take that collateral as repayment for the loan. If the lender or the debtor pays back the loan, maybe it's 5-year 5% loan or something for a business loan or something. If they pay that off, then they keep the second key, and therefore they still have access to their Bitcoin collateral or their digital asset collateral. So super boring, but it really helps institutions and private equity and large cap companies get involved in the space when they have clarity about the Uniform Commercial Code, which is probably a phrase that no one in here has ever thought of or heard of, but it does help on the regulatory clarity piece.
Great, thank you so much. I know coming forward 2023 is digital signatures, digital identity, which is very important going forward, right? So I'm going to just ask a different question now, around the same question for everybody. What excites you about philanthropy, and what do you see as the potential between blockchain, Bitcoin, crypto, and philanthropy, right? I know some of the guiding principles, right, are egalitarianism, more democratic access for everybody. It's not decentralized, owning your own identity. But what do you see, what excites you about philanthropy, and what do you see as the potential cross-section here of this space in philanthropy, right?
Well, part of me wishes philanthropy wasn't necessary, but it is in this country and really around the world to right some of the ills that are going on. What excites me about it, you touched on, is philanthropy's opportunity to be disruptive. And I'm not talking about just the big foundations and the big wealthy families. They may or may not want to be disruptive. But as we spread giving out to more people internationally and nationally, to people who haven't traditionally thought of themselves as philanthropists, the more we have an engaged community, the more people we can support. I think that's really important. Prior to coming to My Possibilities, I led the team that does North Texas Giving Day. And that's a single day, late in September, where we brought people from across the country together to give to nonprofits in North Texas. And that grew from a few thousand donors to 150,000 last year. And it was a lot of people who didn't think they could give, but every little bit makes a difference. As to the crypto and how it intersects, I think there are two things. One, I'm really excited to tell you all that by the end of September, we will be able to accept crypto here at My Possibilities. And I think there was one more service that we needed to be able to provide that we weren't. That I don't think we'll have a huge number of people beating down the doors, but we want to be able to make it easy for people to give. The other thing I think that's important is us being able to talk to you all. We can talk to older, staid people who we know have a lot of money all the time. It's much more interesting to talk to folks who are more entrepreneurial, more experimental, more adventurous in what you're doing, which are broad brushstrokes, but I think from talking to you all out there, apply to a lot of you. So those are just simple, immediate things. But we're very excited about the possibility going forward. We are a very disruptive organization. There aren't many organizations that serve adults with IDD. There are not many organizations. We're big enough to do some things, but we're not too big to do some things. We not only focus on philanthropy, but we focus on social enterprise. We focus on many different ways we can increase what's called earned revenue. So maybe ultimately we won't need philanthropy. I don't really want to work myself out of a job, but I think we can aim that direction. And again, it's so important to involve more people in giving.
I think when thinking about Bitcoin in general, distinguishing between charity and philanthropy, right? Charity is very short-term. It's like a Band-Aid effect. I think philanthropy is much more long-term. And Bitcoin is always about the long game. It's always thinking beyond your own presence. For us, I look at our organization as social impact work, like direct impact work. Our intention and our mission is always to create independence in our communities, never for them to rely on us for funding, never to rely on us on support. Every time we go into a new community, we are looking to them to become partners, to work with us on a mutual basis. Not that we are coming from the States and overpowering them, overbearing them as big brother and say, we are giving something that you need. In fact, I have learned more about myself from being able to do this work than anything else. For our line of work, we learn more than what we do. And that's very impactful. And when it comes to Bitcoin, it's this ideology that Bitcoin provides, this intrinsic value that we don't necessarily talk too much about, that I think we need to kind of focus more on, is the level of empowerment that it brings communities. To be financially literate is something that I think we take for granted here in the United States. The financial privilege that we all have is not seen or felt unless you're able to travel somewhere else around the world. And why is that? Why can't we fix the money problem, right? When you fix the money problem, you fix many things. Something that we say in our space a lot. And Bitcoin is the only incorruptible money that's out there in the entire universe. And that's why I believe in it so much in the line of philanthropy, because it's more transparent, it's more efficient, and it's more accessible, right? So when we're talking about disrupting, right, the level of impact that's happening here at My Possibilities, this is like what I see Bitcoin be, right? This is what blockchain is truly, the impact and the power it truly has of transparency, efficiency, and the level of impact.
Two thoughts. Throw some data at you guys. We did some polling of likely Texas voters, a survey that was put on by a firm that we commissioned, a surveying company. 2,000 respondents, a 2.2% margin of error around ownership of these assets. 29% of Texans own Bitcoin or other digital assets. That's a lot higher than the national average, 29%. The communities of color in Texas are twice as likely to own Bitcoin or other digital assets as Anglo communities. So twice as likely, like from 20% to 40%. Like it's a really stark difference. So if you see communities that have traditionally been underserved by the banking system in the United States and Texas as well, they have really adopted this at high rates. So that's just kind of one thought to keep in the back of your mind as we have this discussion. On the philanthropy piece, we all want to kind of work sort of with our time and effort to benefit our communities, but incentives on the giving matter. So tax incentives, that kind of stuff matters. So you have volunteer hours, working with our time and effort, and then the incentives. With donations in the crypto space, you have two potential ways that you can sort of benefit. And I think this is not known by most people in the space. First of all, you have the traditional donation tax incentive of a deduction, right? Standard deduction when you donate to a 501c3 nonprofit. There's actually a second deduction though, or I guess opportunity cost, where if you have capital gains and you donate it, not only do you get that deduction, but you also don't have to pay capital gains on that. So it'd be like donating, like if you bought Facebook stock 10 years ago or Amazon stock 10 years ago, and you didn't want to, or you needed to offset some of those gains, you could actually donate that stock. The gains get wiped out, and on top of that, I'm seeing my accountant friends in the back are nodding their heads. You also get that benefit. So incentives matter, and so being educated on the tax structure I think is important. So that's probably a huge tool for you guys and for y'all as you're accepting donations. The TBC cannot accept donations. Well, we can accept donations, but they're not tax deductible because we're a 501c6 industry association, whereas these great organizations are C3s or C4s, so they can accept donations and they are tax deductible.
That's very good. I appreciate it.
Yes, and one of the reasons I got involved, I was talking to Eric before, as we started this event, we've talked about, I was thinking about, I'm a little bit older now, I have probably less of a runway ahead of me than behind me, right? And I've done the corporate thing, I've done the rat race, and you work the late nights, and you worry about the stress and everything. It's like, and you're raising a family, it's like, but what have I really accomplished with my life? What have I really done that's impactful, right? And I think that's one of the reasons of getting involved in these types of organizations and giving back, whether you have a true connection or not. It's really making that connection and making that impact, right? So that's really important. Switch gears a little bit, maybe Lee at the end, and then Yusuf, maybe you can talk about it. We have some folks that maybe aren't truly understand what is Bitcoin, what is blockchain, what's crypto, what's the difference, and especially in this environment that we're in right now, there's a lot of probably not so clear things happening, potential scams, etc. We're kind of like 1990s, early 2000s with the launch of the internet, and lots of companies coming out there, lots of noise out there, but who's really going to survive? But for those that aren't initiated, right, how would you explain what blockchain is, Bitcoin and crypto? And maybe Yusuf, you're more on the Bitcoin side, maybe you can articulate that. So Lee, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so we get this question a lot. Bitcoin is the first cryptocurrency, obviously, 2008. The white paper was published in 2009. It starts to trade. And so it's the most impactful innovation in the space. Proof of work is the innovation. If you're not familiar with proof of work, you can look it up. I can't explain it in this time that we have here tonight. But it is a very important innovation in the space. There is other innovation that's happening outside of Bitcoin, including in the smart contract world, with Ethereum and some of the other projects. There's also thousands of other projects out there, most of which are not providing a lot of real world value. So what we say at the TBC is we're Bitcoin first, but not Bitcoin only. There are projects that are providing real world value, that are solving business problems, that are iterating and building upon Bitcoin. But the further, there's what's called a blockchain trilemma. You have scalability, decentralization, and security. And it's really impossible to optimize for all three. So Bitcoin is really optimized for decentralization and security. And some of the other smart contract problems are solving different real world problems. And so they've had to move away from proof of work and optimize for scalability and a little bit less on security. That may be fine for some use cases. It's not good for sound money. So the way that we talk about it is we actually separate them. They're not even the same. We say blockchain, Bitcoin, and crypto. So Bitcoin is sound money. It has payments layers, layer twos like Lightning. Blockchain is sort of a broad term that can describe them all. And crypto could include like sort of NFTs, like tokenized real estate and things like that. There is value there, but there's also some projects there that you need to be wary of. So that's how we describe it. There's a lot of strong feelings about this in the crypto space. If you work in the industry, maybe you could critique me on my explanation later.
No, Lee's explanation is very eloquent. Mine is very simple. For me, when I go into a new community and I talk about Bitcoin with them, I ask people like in a room like this, who in here loves money? And everybody raises their hand. I raise my hand twice. And the next question is, who can tell me what money is? And no one is able to raise their hand, right? So we just don't, people truly just don't understand the true meaning behind what money is and what money can do for them. And for me, Bitcoin is money. That's the most simplest translation I can give. It is universal, decentralized, scarce, hard, sound money. That's all it is. And for us, in the work that we do, we try to exemplify its best use case, in my estimation, that is philanthropy, to be able to build infrastructure, to be able to build community. We have a mantra within our foundation. We don't just build schools, we build community. Building community takes trust, and it takes time. That's the most valuable asset that we have on this planet. Certainly not Bitcoin, it is time, because we're never gonna get time back again, right? And so for an individual that's living in a rural community in Rwanda, for example, and that doesn't have access to the US dollar and certainly not the access to the Rwandan franc, but they have access to technology in the form of a phone. They have access to Bitcoin. They wouldn't have access to fiat then and there. So for us, the way that we explain it is money that is accessible to you at any time of day, any time of the year, and you're able to allow the Bitcoin to become a translator of money, so to speak, translating between USD to Rwandan franc to Mexican peso to the Nigerian naira. It is able to be used in every corner of every point of the world, unless the internet is out. And God forbid that ever happens. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, thanks for that explanation. And, the way I understand it too, blockchain, if you think about when it was launched is after the Great Recession, 2008, 2009, right? And the problem of central banks just printing money. And do we have visibility into their ledgers, right? Who's printing it? Do we have knowledge of the transaction? So if you think about blockchain, it has a timestamp. It's a distributed ledger where it's about transparency. So everyone can see every transaction, see when it was made, and pseudo who made it, right? But and then blockchain, Bitcoin builds upon that as hard money, right? And then you have these other crypto projects that are out there that have different use cases, right? Different purposes, whether it's around smart contracts or other types of things. So thanks for that explanation. It's a lot to digest, and it could take a lot of time, a lot of videos. But we spent years trying to learn this, and it's very hard to always explain in a short amount of time, right? So, in the interest of time, too, we want to make sure we get to Q&A. I'm going to do some closeout questions. I'll start at the end and close out with you. So, tell us a little bit more, Lee, about how folks can get involved with the Texas Blockchain Council. Some of the events that are coming up. I know there's networking events, and then also the summit that's coming up. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that, and then I'll ask the other people.
So we do events all over the state of Texas, mostly in the big cities, Houston, Austin, Dallas, Fort Worth, et cetera. The big event that we have coming up is November 17th and 18th in Austin, where we'll bring in speakers from the federal level, like CFTC Commissioner Pham. Last year we had SEC Commissioner Peirce. We'll have Texas Senators Cruz, Cornyn. We're still trying to get the governor. We think he's going to come, but we don't yet have confirmation. We'll have some of our other legislative partners, that congressmen, men and women, who will come and talk about the policy aspect of things. We'll also have conversations around Bitcoin mining. These are Bitcoin mining machines, by the way. I failed to mention this. Steve Kennard, our director of Bitcoin mining analytics, brought these. This is an S19. Was this like a $6,000 machine, probably? Yeah. We bought it for like 10, but the market has since crashed a little bit. It's probably more like $4,000 or $5,000 now. That's an old relic S9. It has very little value now. It's probably worth like 25, 50 bucks. But anyways, this thing can mine a lot of Bitcoin. That mines very little Bitcoin. But if you're interested in Bitcoin mining, we do a lot of regulatory work with ERCOT and the PUC around how miners can support the grid. You'll hear a lot about that at our summit on November 17th and 18th. So that's really the main event that I'd point you to. Other than that, we're doing meetups all over the state.
How can you get involved? So we created something called the Blockchain and Philanthropy within our foundation, where we wanted folks to kind of join us on the journey of the trips that we take. I'm truly blessed and fortunate to be able to travel around the world and be able to connect with folks. I was able to take my wife and I to El Salvador recently, earlier this, actually in July, to be able to visit our schools there. Point being, we post a lot of content that shares stories. We are not into capturing poverty in any form or any fashion. We want to be able to capture stories of individuals that may not have the platform to be able to share their stories and how Bitcoin has affected their lives in a positive way. We're all about being able to create a better quality of life. So social media, on Twitter, on Instagram, we're very active on our website, builtwithbitcoin.org. We have a lot of information on there, a lot of photos, but we like to be able to engage with folks. That's why we're very heavy on social media. It's been a great platform for us. We don't have a physical space like this. I wish we did, but our work is out in the field. But my possibility is here in this community, and I'm very proud to be able to be here amongst you all and talk about this kind of work. And we're definitely going to be here after the event to answer any questions y'all may have, or any Q&As that you guys may have as well too. So thank you again for the opportunity.
Well, there are a number of ways to get involved with My Possibilities, but I'd like to start by officially thanking you gentlemen for supporting us tonight and matching gifts, and tell you all that should you want to make a gift tonight, we have dip jars out on the front desk. You can just stick your credit card in there and pull it out. Sorry, not Bitcoin tonight, but you can do that. You will also be hearing from us soon, actually, with a number of ways to get involved and Like you were talking about, Yusuf, social media is very important. Follow us, mptx.org or My Possibilities. Follow us on all those things. That's the way we communicate a lot. So that's important. We always need volunteers, and it can be as easy as covering lunch with me one day, or as complex, it's not complex, as in depth as coming in for a day of inclusion, either by yourself or with a company or a group of friends, where you actually can be in the classrooms with our hipsters. We also need service. We need things done around the building, around the property. So any of those ways are good ways to get involved. We're always giving tours to folks, so if that interests you, please let us know. And we will follow up with you with links and various things to those resources. So thank you.
So also let them know about some upcoming events, and then also say that they know somebody, have a family member or a friend that may need some of these services. How do they get plugged in?
Thank you. I meant to mention that. Please, there are not many resources for adults with IDD. So if you know someone who does need that, or know a family that's wrestling with it, often when their children are teenagers, they begin to wrestle with it. Please direct them our way. Our website provides a lot of information, and we will provide you, Evan and I will provide you with our email addresses, because you can certainly connect us with them, and we will connect them with admissions. We do a careful admissions process, because we want to make sure that the hipsters coming in, that My Possibilities is going to be a good fit for them. And we have a Hopster program, which is it's the hipster orientation program, so they can come in and try it out for a while. So please connect them with us in any way. Oh, yes. Oh, God. You're good. You should do this. Yes, if you like to play golf, we've got a golf tournament coming up in October 11th. Again, our website is a good source of information for that. It's a particular specialty of Evan's. He's the golfer on my team. We've got that coming up. We'll be participating in North Texas Giving Day, which is September 22nd. And then we go quiet for a while, and we always have a big gala in the spring. So those are some event ways to get involved.
No, I think you did great. So this has been awesome for me, to be on this panel with you folks. It's been wonderful. I've learned some things, in a lot of different areas, and this is exciting. So once again, thanks for the matching gifts and the honor to be here. So what I want to do is we have some time now. It's allocated some minutes for Q&A. So if we have a question.
What's a hipster?
Oh, a hipster is, we call our clients, oh yes, the question was, what's a hipster? I'm sorry, I thought I covered that earlier. We call our clients hugely important people, which abbreviates to hipsters. And that's something they started very early on. We didn't want to use the clinical terms of clients or students or anything like that. So a hipster is one of the folks in our program.
So one of the original hipsters is on the board too, right? Maybe you can tell a little about that.
Yes, we have, again, as I mentioned earlier, inclusivity is really important to us. Hipster representation is really important to us. So we have a hipster who's on the board. We have a hipster who's on the foundation board, which we serve on. We also have a hipster council, which is kind of like a student council, and they bring forth a number of important things that we might not know. Just two quick examples, if I may. When we were building the building, one of our hipsters saw the plans for the restroom and said, the handicap stall is always the furthest from the door. Could you make it the one closest to the door? Because mobility is an issue. Yes, so we've made that happen. And actually, the architect who designed this building has made it happen other places. A second thing the council brought forward is initially the chairs in our classroom didn't roll. And they proposed that we add wheels to them so that they can get around more easily to see other folks in their classroom, that they can better understand what their friends in wheelchairs are experiencing. And so everything's on wheels now. We move stuff around all the time.
Yes, and while we're waiting for other questions, if you work at a company and there may be opportunities to do some internships or bring on board some folks, please keep that in mind. And also, as elderly, if you know people that parents are maybe a little bit elderly and looking for care for their adult children, right? As they pass on, there's other opportunities to help those people out. So other questions out there?
So Yusuf, you talked about, to paraphrase here, but basically Bitcoin is money. From your perspective, do you see Bitcoin having any unique capabilities in the philanthropy sector because it's digital that fiat currency does not?
Can you repeat the question?
So the question is, are there unique opportunities using Bitcoin over fiat for philanthropy? Is that correct? Yeah. So that's one of the main reasons, yes, to answer your question, yes. One of the main reasons why it's important to be able to use Bitcoin through philanthropy is transparency is first and foremost, right? Using the blockchain, where donations are, how much donations are coming in, donations going out, that's the first key. The second key is accessibility. To be able to send funds 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days out of the year. Doesn't matter if it's a holiday, Sunday, evening, whatever it may be. To understand, to be able to build a building like this, for a contractor to not have the funding to be able to buy supplies or materials or to pay its workers, that kind of delays the work from actually happening, right? So imagine building a school and then having to use SWIFT, unfortunately, or ACH to a foreign country. Let's use Nigeria as an example, because we've been talking about a lot. The relationship, the financial situation and relationship between Nigeria and the United States is not the greatest. It could be better, right? So there's more due diligence that needs to happen sending fiat as a bank transfer to a banking system in Nigeria, the fees that would cost, but the time. That's the most unique opportunity that Bitcoin provides for an individual like myself. The amount of time that we save sending Bitcoin versus fiat, it completely shatters any other use case for us. Because when you save on time, you save on efficiency. So let's say that there's a community of 500 people, there's a school that we're building for 200 children, and it takes 3 months to build that school versus 6 months to build that school. Because on one transaction, I can send $100,000 worth of Bitcoin versus having to send 10 transactions with $9,999 worth of fiat, right? Because anything above that is going to be flagged. There's more vetting, more compliance, more issues that creates. Speed, time, and efficiency, all of this saves on cost as well too. So in short, there's three main positive use cases for using Bitcoin: the transparency, the efficiency, and the saving on the cost and the time. I hope that answers your question. Yeah. Thank you for the question.
Question for my possibilities. Have you considered, or are you considering, or will you consider holding Bitcoin on your balance sheet as reserves?
The question is if we considered holding Bitcoin on our balance sheet as reserves. Yes. And currently that is not something that we're going to do. In accepting crypto, that falls under our board policy for appreciated assets. And so like when we get stock, we sell it immediately, and we'll do the same thing with Bitcoin. That is not to say we won't give it more consideration in the future. But I know right now we're not set up to do that. We're not planning to do that.
Yes, a lot of things for a lot of these philanthropic organizations, nonprofits, or just any companies, like never lose money, right? So as soon as you get a stock, or whether it's a crypto right now, they're more concerned about the devaluation, right? So making sure that you can convert that that has liquidity, and you can convert that to cash to use for the fund. So hopefully that can be sorted out in the future, right? And if there's folks out there that can help them with that, I'm sure my possibilities would entertain those discussions. Other questions?
This one's for you, Yusuf. It was really cool. You don't have to repeat this, by the way. It'll be a bit longer. It was really interesting to hear the story, and I think that's really fantastic work that you're doing. Now, this might be a dumb question because it's in the name, but outside of BTC, are there other like L1s that you guys take as currency, or is it just BTC?
That's a great question, actually. So we work with a partner. We've actually been working with them. We were their very first organizations, the Giving Block, and I know that my possibility is going to begin to work with them. Alex is a very good friend of mine. I started working with him in 2018. So in 2017, when we first received our first Bitcoin, to be honest with y'all, I don't even know about all the different altcoins. I don't get involved in them. There's absolutely no utility for the work that I do for them. That's not to say that others can't make the same decision. But nonetheless, the Giving Block has opened up our funding revenue for other different types of cryptocurrencies, because for me it's Bitcoin and then everything else, right? But what we do is if we get a contribution in Ethereum, for example, that's automatically converted into Bitcoin first and we send it out as Bitcoin. We don't deal with sending out ETH, Cardano, all this other kind of stuff out into the real world because there's no utility for us there. All the education that comes from us is about Bitcoin and Bitcoin only. And we feel as though that we protect communities doing that because there's a lot of risk. We want to be as risk adverse as we possibly can as an organization. We have a fiduciary responsibility to these communities. And beyond just the fiduciary responsibility, I know these people, okay? I go into these communities, I know their children, I know them. For me to sit in front of a classroom or an environment and to tell them, oh, here's this new opportunity for you all to make some money, I never give any financial advice to anybody. That's not what we're doing. All our intention is to give education on it, and anything beyond that is speculative for us. So to answer your question, we do accept other cryptocurrencies because of our relationship with the Giving Block, but everything is converted into Bitcoin and sats are sent out. L1, L2, we do receive Lightning donations through a Strike wallet. You can give us tips if you'd like to via Twitter. It's very simple, but those Twitter tips, because of the amount, they're not tax exempt. Lightning transactions, they can only go up to about $700 to $800 US or so. If an individual would like to give that, they can give it directly to our website. So anything that's given to either our site or to my possibilities eventually by the end of September, you automatically receive a tax receipt as soon as the 6 confirmations are made.
Cool. I have a second part to the
Please.
question. And Giving Block is amazing. We met some of them in Austin.
Okay.
Do you guys keep the BTC on your books? Do you convert it into stable coins? Because obviously Lee was mentioning some of the issues, the scalability, gas fees of BTC, volatility is one of the
Right.
more generic issues. So do you keep it on your books or do you convert it into a stable coin?
So it depends on the contribution. So if an individual contributes to us to a general fund, what we do is we have projects that we raise funds for. And then once that project is funded, we immediately send funds out. So in the bear market, for example, everyone's struggling, right? Everyone's struggling. Everyone's portfolio in here, if you're in Bitcoin and crypto, is struggling, unfortunately. For us, in order to be as risk adverse as we possibly can, we don't push out new projects during this bear market unless we know that there is funding for it. We don't have any open projects, so to speak, right? Because what we want to do in a bear market is to continue to maintain and sustain the projects that we have at the very moment in time. So to put Bitcoin on the books, we have a completely separate fund. So we have a Bitcoin treasury, so to speak, an endowment, a Bitcoin endowment that we've created. A lot of the home miners have directed their mining towards us, and they said, we want to keep this in this specific non-KYC'd wallet and allow us for this to be able to grow over time. We want to leave that there for 3 to 5 years because our vision is to build 100 schools by 2030. And we know within 3 to 5 years, God willing, that Bitcoin, those sats will be able to fund all of those schools that we want to be able to accomplish eventually.
For those that don't know what is KYC.
I'm sorry?
For those that don't know what KYC is.
So non-KYC is, I don't know if there's any, what's the word I'm looking for? Any accountants that are here or CPAs nonetheless. KYC means know your customer, where you have to kind of verify who you are. You have to be doxxed. On our site, you can make an anonymous donation. What that obviously means that you don't receive a tax receipt. So you cannot claim that as a deduction on your taxes if you're a US citizen or a resident here. But non-KYC means that you're sending sats over to this wallet. It just sits there, you monitor it from afar, but you are not receiving any tax benefit from it. Yeah. The IRS does not like that. That's why I want to be very careful with what I say.
The IRS doesn't like a lot of things.
Yeah, 87,000 new agents are being hired too, so oh my goodness. Yikes.
All right, last 1 or 2 questions.
My question is to my possibilities. By having people donate with crypto, what percentage are you anticipating an increase of donations? Can you project that?
We're going into it without many expectations right now because we think it's the right thing to do. Conversations with Luke Schertzer, who's sitting behind you, with Sanjay, we think it's the right thing to do, but we don't quite know what to expect. So we'll have a much better sense at the beginning of 2023 because so much of our fundraising is in the last quarter. So we'll keep you posted.
All right, last question.
What was the greatest challenge for my possibilities in preparing to accept crypto donations?
What was the greatest challenge in preparing for it? It was initiating the conversation among our leadership and our board leadership because we felt it was important that they understand it. Truthfully, those conversations moved much more quickly than I anticipated. People saw the wisdom of it. And again, because we really are looking at it as an appreciated asset, like stock, like property, like any of those things, they felt very comfortable wrapping it in to that policy going forward. Yeah.
All right, well, I want to thank my illustrious panelists for this wonderful night, for all of you for joining, and those of you online that are going to be watching this. Just a quick announcement, this was our first event like this. It looks like this may be our first annual event. We may be looking to do this on an annual basis, and hopefully it gets much larger as we go forward, and we may also be expanding to other events. We have other organizations. We actually have other nonprofits that are members of the Texas Blockchain Council and may be interested in doing similar type things. But you know, we are an umbrella organization, Texas Blockchain Council, right? And whether it's blockchain, Bitcoin, crypto, DeFi, Web 3.0, whatever you want, right? And we want to make sure we have a unified voice as going forward. And then also as my other foot with my possibilities, right, in terms of philanthropy and helping, you know, it ties in with this whole concept of, you know, underserved, underrepresented, and how do we help people move forward in life. So to me, this has been a wonderful night, so thank you for making it a wonderful night, and let's go out for some refreshments and catch up and meet with each other. So thank you so much.
Hey, it's Amy. Click over here to subscribe, click over here for more content, and we'll see you next time.